In introduction, we discuss some constitutional issues unrelated to criminal justice operation. The first issue we are going to discuss is the principle of separation of powers. We know in the federal government we have three branches. We have legislative branch, we have a judicial branch, we have the executive branch. So under this principle of separation of powers, each branch can only exercise the power or perform the function that belongs to this branch. No branch can interfere with the function of a different branch. So that is basically what we mean by this separation of powers. To further understand the operation of this principle of separation of powers, we want to look at a specific issue. So the issue is this line item veto power, whether this line item veto power is constitutional or not. To understand this issue of line item veto power, we need to examine this law-making process. To begin with, we should emphasize this law-making authority or law-making power belongs to Congress. So basically, this is the process of making the law. So a bill must first pass the House of Representatives and also the Senate. The bill must have this majority support in the two chambers of Congress. And after that, the bill will be sent to the president for his signature. The president may either sign the bill or veto it. So if the president would sign the bill becomes law. If the president vetoes the bill, it would not become law. So basically, this is the lawmaking process. So the bill must have this majority support in the Senate and also in the House of Representatives, and then the bill will be sent to the president for his signature. The president may either sign that or veto that. But the question is, can the president veto some of the provisions and make only the provisions he would sign into law? And for the provisions he vetoed, those provisions would not become law. So that is what we call, and this authority, if we would give the president this authority, and then that is what we mean by this line item veto power, meaning is the president would not sign or veto the entire bill, but the president would pick and choose and would veto some of the provisions and make the remaining provisions become law. That is what we mean by this line item veto power. So the issue is whether this line item veto power is constitutional or not. That is the issue we have, or more specifically, whether to grant the president this power, whether that would be in violation of the principle of a separation of powers. To understand why the suggestion was made that the president should be given this line item veto power, we should have some further understanding of this lawmaking process. We need to understand this lawmaking process actually is a deal-making process. This is very common in the process of making the law in Congress. This deal-making is a common practice. Let's look at this bill on education. I think we can understand this deal-making process. We know we have this bill on education. Congress intends to improve the nation's level of education. So Congress wants to pass this bill on education. As we can see, this bill contains 6 items. The first 5 items are related to education. But the last one is about providing money to the state of California for highway construction. So this item is totally unrelated to education. So we may wonder why in this bill on education, why we would have this highway construction item in the bill. So that is what we mean by this. Oftentimes in making the law, there would be this deal making involved. We know for the bill to advance, there must be majority support in the House and also the majority support in the Senate. Just let's say this bill actually already has this majority support in the House, and then this bill now is in the Senate. We know we have 100 senators, and then for the bill to advance, we need the support of at least 51 senators. So let's suppose we only have 1 vote short. The Senate Majority Leader really wants to have this bill passed, so he would go to this senator from California, and the Majority Leader would say, I need your support because we're only 1 vote short. I really hope you can support this bill. And then the senator from the California would say, yes, I can support the bill, but I just want in this bill, you would also put in a provision to provide this money for highway construction in California. If you do that, I will vote for the bill. And then under the circumstances, the Senate Majority Leader probably has no choice, and he would make a deal with this senator from California, and then that's why this highway construction provision is included in this bill. So this kind of a deal-making process, it is common, but many people do not like this practice. They argue this deal-making process is a corrupt process. They don't like it, so they want to control this deal-making process. So how can we do that? One way to handle the issue is to give this president the line item veto power to allow the president to veto certain provisions. For example, in this bill on education, and we would want the president to veto this last item, this highway construction in California, and to make the remaining items become law. So that is really why this line item veto power was suggested. And it should be pointed out, this power actually once was granted to the president. Congress passed a law to give this power, and the president signed this bill into the law, so the president at one time enjoyed this authority. But this authority was challenged right away in court. The argument was this line item veto power was in violation of the separation of powers doctrine. What is the ruling of the U.S. Supreme Court? The U.S. Supreme Court actually struck down this law. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled this line item veto power is unconstitutional for violation of the principle of a separation of powers. What is the analysis? The analysis is like this. Let's look at this bill on education again. We know this lawmaking authority belongs to the legislative branch. The president is from the executive branch. So the president should not be involved in this lawmaking, should not be involved in writing the law. But if the president if we give this line item veto power to the president, and then we need to understand this is what is going to happen. In this bill on education, if the president would say, this highway construction in California is totally unrelated to education, I want to line item veto this provision. At this point, maybe we can agree, maybe this is a good idea because this highway construction is totally unrelated to education. It is a good idea. We just strike down this provision. But what if the president would also say, I also do not like some education-related items? I would also strike down those provisions. So in this example, and we have altogether 6 provisions in this bill on education. That was the bill passed by Congress. But after the president exercised this line item veto power, only 3 provisions would be remaining. So if that is the case, if the president can choose and pick and throw out the provisions he does not like, you need to make a judgment whether the president is involved in writing the law. So we have to say, if the president can do this, and then this bill is already not the same as the one passed by Congress, so the president is actually involved in this law writing. But we know this the power to write the law belongs to the executive branch. The president from the executive, this lawmaking authority belongs to this legislative branch. The president is from the executive branch. So the president cannot interfere, cannot be involved in this law writing process. So based on this analysis, the U.S. Supreme Court said this line item veto power is unconstitutional. So the president now no longer has this line item veto power. When a bill is presented to the president, he may either sign that or veto that in its entirety. The president cannot pick and choose. Let's look at another example of separation of powers. Let's look at this case of bank robbery. Suppose the prosecution decides not to prosecute this case. The issue is, can the victim of the robbery go to court to obtain a court order to compel the prosecution to prosecute the case? We all tend to think the court is powerful, the court can do anything. But in this case, the court actually cannot issue an order to compel the prosecution to prosecute. Why the court cannot do that? It is also because of the operation of the separation of powers principle. According to the Constitution, how to enforce the law, that is the duty of the executive branch. We know the court is in the judicial branch, so the court cannot issue an order to tell the executive branch how the law should be enforced. The court can try the case if the case is presented to court, but the court cannot order the prosecution whether it should prosecute the case, because according to this Constitution, that is the authority, that is the power that belongs to the executive branch.